Bam! What is going on, folks? MC is in the house. My name is Justin Garcia, also known as Master Chim, and welcome to the Warrior Stream. I am here every Wednesday at noon talking about all things mindset, masculinity, tribalnomics, and all that other good stuff. MasterChim.com, which is like right here. That's the website that you can start getting my emails. They're free. I send them every morning. I talk about topics, of relevant interest. I usually have a quote of the day that I'm sharing there as well, so it's something that you should definitely check out and get connected to. So I got some content prepared. Corey, what's going on, my man? I got some content prepared today that I want to go over. Sparked by a conversation I was having with a guy at the gym the other day. And I've been playing nice, and, being that I got thrown out of a gym a couple of weeks ago, or maybe it's been a couple of months ago at this point. And, but, it's hard. It's hard not telling people what I think they need to hear. And I figured, you know what? Let me save all that energy, keep it stowed away, and let it motivate the content that I'm going to share today. So, who else we got here? Alan, what's going on? Aaron, what's going on? Aaron says, this morning one of the first things our 3-year-old said to me was, "Are we watching Master Chim?" That is awesome. That is absolutely awesome. Yarn Saxa, hello to you. Caceres, what's going on, brother man? James Kidder, what's going on? Says, "Hey MC, got your My Tribe first shirt a few years ago. Are you still selling your toxic masculinity?" Yes. I absolutely am, and depending on, I think you're watching on Facebook, it should be in the description, but you can go to mcwarriorwear.com, and all my shirts are listed. That's the online store that I have for all my toxic masculinity shirts. But the link to that should be in the description. So today we got a couple of things going on. Man, I tell you, I started the challenge like everybody else. Big Fred, what's going on, brother man? Berserker, good morning to you. I started the challenge at the beginning of this year, and if I even thought I was going to talk about this, I would have prompted the image. But basically, there's a routine going. Let me see if I could. I probably have the image here. All right. Jose, what's going on? James says, "Great, thanks. I get compliments on your tribe shirt every time I wear it." That's awesome. I usually just get weird stares and people move away from me. You gotta tell me a secret. All right, where is this thing? Oh, geez. So I started the challenge at the beginning of the year, and this image has to be here. I mean, damn well I posted the freaking thing all over the place. But basically, at the beginning of the year, a lot of people, they have the New Year's resolutions and all that energy that goes along with it. And I completely admit that at the beginning of it, years ago, growing up, I'd be one of those guys that, New Year's resolutions are bullshit. You should be able to talk about, or do whatever you're talking about whenever you want. You shouldn't have to wait for, and once you mature a little bit in life, you realize that your perspective changes, right? Your scale sort of gets a little bit more grand, and as the camera sort of pans back and you get to see more, you realize where this is concerned, there's some people who have some energy for New Year's resolutions. Why not take that energy and leverage it? Now, I will say, in order to be honest to myself, I was also not going to lie to people and just give them a challenge I thought was just a waste of time, or just trying to get people to give me credit for some shit they did for 2 weeks. And as soon as they stop doing it, just ignore them when they say that they're not doing it anymore. So I gave people a challenge to do, and this is the image. I found it on Instagram there. There you go. All right, so you can go to my Instagram, which is master_Chim. and you could find it there too. But it's 5 minutes of mobility, 25 squats, 25 push-ups, 5 minutes of breathing, a one-sentence mindset check, which is, I think, one of the unique things about this. A lot of the other stuff people are familiar with, but the one-sentence mindset check, I basically write down every morning a get myself focused, hold myself accountable, get my head out of my ass, get it going sort of statement I write to myself every morning. I have a collection of these. I go and I read back where my head was, depending on what days and weeks, and it's sort of like an opportunity to disconnect from any of the stories that are going on in your head and literally just focus things to where they need to be. And that alignment has been productive for me. Aside from those things, 10,000 steps a day, which I have my Fitbit and I usually do, and 1 minute cold shower. I usually do 5 minutes. I do a bunch of different cold therapies in addition to that. And that's that. So anyway, I don't even know why the hell I was getting into this, but you'll notice that I got a timer video now. I actually changed the angle of my camera. I have a different logo here. I'm really trying to push people to sign up to the email list and to just keep that, because masterchim.com is pretty much going to be relevant no matter what's going on. I do have some other projects going on business-wise in the coming weeks and months that I'm excited about. But basically, it's like, when I said at the beginning of the year that these challenges were going to sort of create a trajectory, I'm telling you now, I internalized that, and I've been walking the walk, and I have the benefits to show for it. I probably got more done these past few weeks than I have probably the few months prior to that. I was coasting on a lot of different things, and I don't want to get too sidetracked, but here we are, got some content prepared. Let's see what's going on. Will, what's going on? Aaron says, I guess I could look it up, but I was wondering what exactly does 5 minutes of mobility entail? I hope that's not a dumb. It's not a dumb question. And I actually, on the email that I sent regarding the challenge, I listed the link of for my mobility thing. You know what? I'm gonna find it right now. And so what I did was a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago or so, I just filmed my morning mobility routine, and it's not something that is very, over the top like crazy, but it's something that done consistently will absolutely produce results because for me it has. Come on, here's the link. Bam, I got it. All right, so let me just copy this. I'm going to put this link in the chat here. And you should be able to click that. And that brings you to my link there. Yeah, you should be good to go. So, all that being said, what I did wanted to talk about today, let's start. I did some prep today, getting my shit together, people, in 23. Watch out. Oh man, you guys have no idea all the shit that I got planned this year. 5 lies men keep telling themselves. 5 lies men keep telling themselves. Now, like a lot of my content, I talk to men. The overwhelming majority of my stuff applies to women. I don't know if the overwhelming majority. A lot of my stuff, most of my stuff, I'm comfortable saying applies to women. But this is certainly not something that is geared or directed towards just people in general. This is shit that men are going through and continue to go through. And it's just so fucking annoying. I'll be honest, because I'm not better than anybody. I'm not better than any of these people, but I'll be damned if I'm not better at a lot of shit than a lot of people, right? So I think the quality of who I am, or maybe the value, the general universal value of my life is equal to any other living thing, blah, blah, blah. That being said, it's like, fuck, man, these men, they keep lying to themselves. And aside from them lying to themselves, they keep lying about lying to themselves. And then they want to complain about shit that they're lying about. But it's like, it's like watching somebody that has like fucking cupcake crumbs on their face, complaining about, they got a thyroid problem. I don't know why I keep, gaining weight. I can't lose weight. And it's like, it's not just that they're eating cupcakes and not admitting it. It's that they're telling it to somebody who sees the fucking crumbs on their face. Right? So that's what happens. I walk around and I see nothing but crumbs on men's faces. Proverbial crumbs on people's faces. So, Cherrytown Vibe, what's going on, my man? Good to see you. So let's get into this list. I got this prepped and we'll bullshit after, during, whatever. I'll answer some questions, but I definitely want to get through this, right? So let's start off with number 5. Number 5. One of the lies that men keep telling themselves. Being good is corny. Being good is corny. Now, there are a lot of standards that people who live a deficient life, an ineffective life. I'm not even going to bring morality into it yet. But people who are just living a life that is below their potential, right? They are subperforming. There is this idea that in order to validate, and it's not a conscious idea, for some people it would be, but as a general thing, there are a lot of people who enjoy mocking those who do the things that they don't have the character, discipline, etc. to do themselves. And I remember I had family members growing up that used to tell me I talked white, right? And these were obviously the Puerto Rican side of my family, because it'd be a little weird if my Italian and Irish cousins told me that. But, my cousins told me I spoke white, and, what they meant by white was proper fucking English, And, but that is a typical thing, it's an insecurity, a defense mechanism, it's projection, it's, I'm going to sit here and, denigrate or insult a standard that somebody else is achieving, for really no other reason than I'm not achieving it myself. And getting to this one lie, being good is corny. Doing the right thing and being a good person at some point fell out of favor. And it's this sort of anti-hero, counterculture, who am I? I'm not them, but all of them are saying to do this, so I need to define myself as being something other than that. That slave mindset, like the teenager, arc of personality and identity development, where they start off with, I'm whatever, I don't even know who I am, I don't even think about who I am, and then eventually they become teenagers, and it's like, well, who am I? And I don't have any experiences to really answer that question, so let me observe what's around there, and I know I'm not that, so I'll just act opposite that, and that's a very typical, arc for a teenager's identity. But at some point, men, they adopt this mindset that being good is corny. Now, what are examples of being good? Like not stealing, like not assaulting people, like, not being vulgar, not having a sort of a relationship with just gratification-laden pursuits, where whether it's porn or the different forms of excess, and avoiding all those things is something that actually gives people what they want. It actually inspires and drives people to develop more of their potential. Put it this way, all the things that people complain about, being moral, being good, will help empower you to get there. You have the people that want to lose weight, but I don't want to change my diet, or I don't want to go to the gym, or I don't want to, whatever. They want change without changing. And in this instance, when it comes to being moral, being good, right? And I come from, some of you guys, I'll be honest, some of you guys are probably watching this going, what the fuck is he talking about? Like, everybody in my family's moral. Everybody, we know to be good. My favorite superhero is Superman. I grew up in the hood. I grew up in the Bronx. I grew up with people who were, thieves, drug dealers, drug addicts, just violence, like I knew stick-up kids, I knew car thieves, I knew people who would, just burglarize apartments, I knew the entire spectrum of degeneracy growing up. So it was very typical in those environments to sort of insult and denigrate anybody that had a sort of sense of morality or personal standard that transcended their own. So this idea of something being corny, is very prevalent in those areas, of those literal areas, but also those areas of life when it comes to people just being exposed to the behaviors that they have yet to work to exhibit themselves and demonstrate themselves. They will insult those behaviors. And this is the lie that people tell themselves. Like the guy who, I know people that go to church every Sunday, and growing up, like, holy shit, I was the anti-theist. I've never made any bones about this. I was the, not even the atheist. I was the guy who would seek out people who were, super religious and just find ways to insult them. And it took me a long while to realize that there was that was filling a void that these people were filling in those ways that I was insulting. But my pursuit of insulting these people was pretty much, it's like, hey, well, if these people are where I am in terms of spiritual development, then I must be doing well because here I am equal to everybody else, right? Regression to the mean, so to speak. And it's just not true. It's just not valid. When we look at people who have the things, let's make it simple. When we look at people who have the things we want, we need to be able to acknowledge they're doing things we haven't done. And okay, you see somebody who's born rich. Anything that they're doing while they're being rich, it's easy to just dismiss. But if you like these lifestyles, let's just say, and I don't mean, fucking jet setting and doing all that stuff, but if you like the type of lifestyle where one is comfortable, one is able to do what they want to do, provide for who's relying on their provision, it's easy to say, well, he has all of that because his this, or his dad gave him all that, or his uncle, is the one that gave him the job, or whatever. But I would say before you sort of just dismiss that pursuit because of that narrative that you designed, I would advocate for you taking a second and asking yourself, well, is there any, do the research, is there anybody that's gotten those same consequences and results that didn't start, from this high point that this individual did that I'm observing? And I don't think it takes much to find somebody that started lower on the ladder than you did and got to those places. And when that's there, you'll see behaviors that go along with it. And, it's just immature. Like in 2023, here we are, the current year, right? We're sitting here insulting people who are doing shit that we don't have the discipline to do. It's so much easier for, and I'll tell you right now, and getting into why it's the lies that men are telling themselves. Think about all the people who make fun of, I'm one of them, who make fun of the body positivity movement, right? That these obese whale-looking women are attractive and sexy and this and that, and how that should be, somehow supported as a good thing. And I obviously like no, these women are unhealthy. These women have bad habits. These women eat in excess. They don't have any discipline. Like, why would we expect somebody who can't stop eating somehow would have the ability to run a business or raise a family or, pay back a loan or like whatever it is? Like, these things are all connected. So that being said, we need to, the men that are out there, making fun of people who are, goody two shoes or, oh, this guy doesn't have 20 girlfriends. This guy doesn't, smoke weed. This guy doesn't drink. We need to reserve that judgment and observe a little bit more. Observe and ask ourselves, well, what are they doing? What are the formulas they're running? Are they getting something that we would like to get? Because if they're not, then, different strokes for different folks and all of that. But if they do have some of these outcomes that we do, maybe we should take a little bit more time away from the criticism, which is just defending our own insecurities, and invest that in actually investigating what it is that they're doing and how we could sort of apply that to our own lives, right? So, number 5, being good is corny. Comments. So, I'm going all over the place here. All right. Yarn Saxa says, someone told me once it's human nature to lie. I don't believe that. Saying it's human nature is denying accountability for staying in whatever position they are in, self-created the majority of the time, right? And you know what? I think, you bring up a good point, because I really didn't get into what, I define lying as being, right? So lying, if we're going to sort of define what lying is, we got to understand all communication is metaphor, right? I've said that before, and I have a bunch of content to that. You could probably Google it. I always share the story about my daughter, who's now 7. When she was, I believe, 3, she came out from the bedroom. I was on the living room couch watching television, and she said, "Daddy, there's a monster under the bed." Was she lying? Of course she wasn't lying. But of course there wasn't a monster under the bed. So I think there is some nuance to be had here. I don't want to just dismiss it as being a gray area, because then you're not really taking a stance. But I will also say that, I'm the tribe guy. I'm the guy that says, when the government comes into your house and says, do you know where your brother is? And you say no, are you lying? Does our criteria for lying include that as lying? And if it is, that's fine. But then let's just create a subset of lying to people who are in our tribe, lying to people who rely on us, lying to people who we have an alliance with, right? And the lie betrays the agreement of that alliance, and I think that is a criteria that I would want to use. But I thank you for bringing that up. James Kidder says, define good. I've always been an anti-hero. All the fun of the villain with none of the bullshit associated with the hero, but still get the adoration and praise of said hero. So here's the thing. Again, I'm glad you're bringing this up. I should have defined my terms in the beginning. Good is anything that helps the tribe, right? What is moral? Morite, many people, choosing to pursue this universal morality sort of lens. I'm not one of those individuals. I understand that people could be on either side of the battlefield, and by the criteria of who they are, both doing the right thing, both pursuing being good. So in that functional sense, I think being good is anything that helps your tribe, anything that helps you and your tribe. Something that's good for you may not be good for the neighbor. I don't think one of you is good and the other one is not good. I think that these things could coexist if we add that little bit of again, criteria to it, right? So the anti-hero, I don't know if you've ever heard me, talk about anti-anything, but when we define ourselves as anti-something, we define ourselves as the opposite of something we have no control over, the shadow, of an actual identity. So being anti-something, and I understand the phrasing is just the phrasing, but if, me, because I'm dealing with formulas in the work that I do, it's really important that I build a relationship with these terms in a way that I can be consistent when I'm using them in formulas moving down the road. So I want to never be anti-anything, right? Because, does that make me anti? Because, I don't want somebody or some other identity controlling who I am. If we are the anti-hero, and we say that we do the opposite of what the heroes do, or we just never do what the heroes do. If you want to take a, like a softer stance on what anti means. Well, what if the hero starts to do what is best for us? Do we now, to maintain our anti-hero status, have to do something else? And if we would continue to do what was best for us, maybe we shouldn't define ourselves as anti the hero to begin with, right? So I think a lot of times the anti-hero, archetype gets thrown in place of, just looking at an individual who wants to march to the beat of his own drum. Somebody who does not have to use some tribalnomics language, to not have the overlap, that does not have the overlap with the tribe that is putting an individual on the hero pedestal to begin with. So I would be careful with those terms, or I'm careful with those terms. You can do whatever the fuck you want, but I'm careful with those terms because I have to, because in the past, I've been anti this, anti that, you go far back enough, the saying goes, I used to shit my pants, right? So I've been making a lot of positive changes, during the course of my life. So that being said, using the term anti isn't something that, I would advocate for. Right. So let's get to the next one, right? So we went over number 5, which was being good is corny. Here's a good one. Number 4. My kids are fine. Hey, your kid is crying a lot. Is everything all right with your kid? My kid is fine. Hey, your kid is what, about 200 pounds? Yeah, he's 203. Isn't he like 10? It's going to be 11 in May. My kid's fine. Hey, your kid can't read. Well, most of the time, he uses the app that reads it for him. He's fine. There are all these examples that I run into on a regular basis, just given the crowds and the populations that I interact with, that just have an opinion based on or describing, the state of their kids that is so far removed from the fucking reality of it. And they lie to themselves about it, right? Like, let me give you a little background. And admittedly, I have to be careful with this somehow, because I don't ever want to put myself out as, as somebody who's, hey, well, my kids are fucking perfect. My kids are not perfect. My kids are awesome, but they're not perfect. So the point is, not comparing kids. The whole point of this conversation is spotlighting the fact that you're lying to yourself about what's going on with your kids, right? So I know, I have family that I would say suffers from a need to project everything as being okay. Everything's okay. He's good, she's good, everything's okay. And I also have a family history that, if nothing else, illustrates that that is not a valid or an effective way to run the culture of a family. Because everything is not always okay. And if we don't have the means to sort of remedy when things are not okay, those things that aren't okay, we wind up volunteering to suffer from them. If your kids are fat and unhealthy, you need to feed them less. Listen, fat and unhealthy doesn't mean that they don't have a 6-pack or an 8-pack. All my kids have abs, right? My daughter doesn't, right? Yet. But all my sons have abs. I've never had abs a day in my fucking life. And I competed in bodybuilding. Terrible bodybuilder. I got pictures of me fighting at 170 pounds, 171 I think I weighed in. No abs. I'm just one of those guys that I keep all my power on the inside. My abs are very humble that way. Right? So when I say, your kid being, fat and out of shape, I'm not talking about, him being shredded or ripped or I don't give a fuck about that. I'm talking about being healthy. I'm talking about, let's not give the kids diabetes. Let's not have the kid not be able to function socially because he cannot physically participate in kids doing kids rituals. I know a buddy of mine, actor Ethan Suplee, who's done an incredible job, just transforming his life. He would talk about, the struggles. He was pretty heavy at one point. I think he was over 500 pounds at one point. And, he talks about how his life changes when he's that heavy. Like getting an airplane ticket or going to a restaurant or, taking a cab or so. Like, think about, at that level, and Ethan's the first guy that popped in my mind, for somebody who's rectified that. But he tells the story about how his life was affected. Like, why do you think your fat, out of shape kid is not leading a life that's just wrought with those same unnecessary obstacles? Right? Like, I'm all about hard training, right? I'm a martial artist. My kids train right behind me. There's jiu-jitsu mats on the floor where I teach them regularly. Everyone lifts weights. Like, we train hard here in my family. That being said, if I were to just go to my kids and just start like fucking hitting them with a hammer, what would be the point, the value in that? Like, just because there is stress being induced does not justify the act or warrant or create the expectation of some sort of positive result because of that stressor. When you put your kids through some shit by making them unhealthy, what they wind up learning are coping mechanisms. They don't develop character from having to go through their first, 12, 13 years of life, morbidly obese, Besides the weight, you now have the discipline of your children. Like, if your kids are growing up to be undisciplined, understand that those are the kids that grow up gravitating to these groups like Antifa, or grow up becoming druggies who don't have any ambition. You go and, I haven't been to California in many, many years. Not excited to go back by any means. Not that I have any plans to. But I often see these, Skid Row videos and, the homeless, situation that's growing there. And you look and there's all these 20-somethings, healthy, men and women, just sitting there, just homeless, just surviving one day. And then they all have their sob story. They all have, sure, there's a population that has some sort of mental, illness. It's like, but we're not talking about them because we don't have to, because the majority of people are just fucking lazy. The majority of people have just not gotten to the point where they see themselves as climbing their way out of that ditch. Like, don't you understand that the kids that you don't pressure now in a productive way, the kids that you don't build, are the ones that will fall victim to that later on? Your son who you do nothing but smash him every day mentally, and then you wonder why he's got a wife that tells him how to tie his shoes, right? Or a kid who you do everything for, and you wonder why he can't keep a job, and why every time he gets fired, he has a story about why it's somebody else's fault, and he refuses to acknowledge the possibility that maybe it's him. Like, the formulas for preparing a child for adulthood, like, they've been around. There's no secrets to this. Your kids should have chores. Your kids should understand what no means. Your kids should show respect when they're talking to adults. Your kids every single day should have work to do. Anything that they really, really enjoy doing should be curbed. Supply and demand. Right? You want to make sure that they're not looking at these things that are complete luxuries in their lives as, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to, oh, I have my daughter. She only eats grilled cheese sandwiches. So what do you mean she only eats grilled cheese sandwiches? She won't eat anything else. so I got to make her a grilled cheese sandwich. Well, are you a fucking retard? What do you mean your daughter, like the human body, there's no human body that only eats grilled cheese sandwiches. But you wind up having these individuals, they'd rather just say that's a thing than actually hold themselves accountable for fucking changing it. My son, he only eats chicken nuggets. Oh, does he? He only eats chicken nuggets? Oh, man, I can't say anything crazy, but let's just say this. Yeah, my dog won't eat dry food. Oh, yeah? Leave him in a crate with dry food. A couple days. He'll fucking eat it. And then when you give him some more, he's going to be so fucking hungry, he's not going to be so picky. Don't do that to kids, by the way. My kids are fine. Are your kids fine? I don't know. I wake up every day asking myself if my kids are fine. Asking if there's something I should be doing for them. It's like, what's this one doing? What's this one into? What's this one paying attention to? How many have I had enough positive interactions with this one? Have I hugged this one lately? Have I told this one I loved him yet? Or yet today? Have I, I don't ever think my kids are fine, which keeps me engaged in the process. And if something's going wrong, I don't ignore it. I admit it. I own it. I'm accountable for it. Remember I was talking earlier about the men that walk around with the crumbs on their face? Well, when you're somebody whose kid is not fine, everybody fucking knows. And if it's somebody who actually gives a fuck about you, they're probably waiting for you to fucking ask them for help. Ay. Got me fired up over here. Let's go to the next one. The next lie men keep telling themselves. Number 3, my mindset is strong. All of you right now should write this down. I'm not going to go look up the link again. I did that for Aaron. But learning how to learn. It is a free course taught on Coursera. It is taught by a woman named Barbara Oakley and a man whose name I don't remember. Right? But Barbara Oakley, Learning How to Learn. It's a free course. Do yourself a favor and do it. One of the things it teaches is a lot of the mechanisms by which we internalize information, the way we learn. It talks about the science of it. It talks about the things that we have control over, the things that we don't have control over, the things that we could actually change that we never thought we could change. And it was a very, very valuable, free resource for people. The lady Barbara Oakley, I hope to meet her one day. Amazing job. So I'm so grateful that she made that course, because I've gone through it. I've suggested it to many, many people. 2 of my sons have gone through it already. And one of the things that she goes over is mindset. And she goes over this from a scientific perspective, what happens in the brain that we attribute the process to, this term, we call it mindset. And she literally talks about the settings of the brain. When a thought enters your mind, your perception, how is it filed? How is it categorized? Where does it go? What do you do with it? What's its value? People who think their mindset is strong, well, I'm going to ask, when you have an obstacle, facing you, what do you do? Do you engage it? Do you ignore it? Do you run from it? When you have something that seems like a catastrophe, do you become emotional and energized immediately? Or do you have a process that allows you to remind yourself, yeah, I've been through worse than this before. This is going to be something I'm going to have to go through. Do you have the ability to maintain that perspective? When you look at everything that you consider to be valuable in your character, who you are as a person, do you realize that every bit of that came through processes that were wrought with pressure? I'm born and raised in the Bronx. I'm street savvy. Obviously, I got the gift of gab, right? There are a lot of things, a lot of insights, a lot of positive attributes I have because of the environment that I grew up in. But, by the way, growing up was not fucking easy in the Bronx. But here I have the positive attributes and consequences as a result of exposing myself to that. Well, that's a mindset thing to be able to process it that way. You know, when something goes wrong in your life and the first thing you do is you become emotional, that's an internal process that's just geared towards, you know, you feeling better. It doesn't necessarily fix anything on the outside world. You know, so men who walk around saying their mindset is strong, but they don't have the discipline to do anything that they know they should be doing. They don't have the discipline or even the character to follow through on promises, obligations, oaths that they made to people that they care about, people that care about them. You know, I don't know if your mindset is strong, but I know there are a lot of men walking around who don't have the mindset they think they do. Everything is a tantrum or a withdrawal or just extreme, like, I'm sick. It's like somebody with a really bad digestive system where anything they eat that isn't super, super bland, you know, just aggravates this whole process. You know, they're nauseous, they diarrhea, they, you know, all these different. Like, to me, somebody with a bad mindset, that's how they walk around their lives. They have to make sure they design a life that's very, very safe because they don't have the ability to allow information in any stressful environment to their mind and still be able to function. So, another lie that men are telling themselves. Let me catch up with these comments. All right. Berserker Lee says, I'm back home, y'all. Have a good one. I gained too much weight in 2022 with the crumbs on my face. But it's time to take responsibility for myself. 2023 is a new year. Absolutely. You know, and when you're somebody who, you know, and it's tied in, you know, the whole premise of this talk is, you know, lies that men tell themselves. It's not about being perfect. It's not about, like, you could literally listen to this and acknowledge that you lie to yourself about these things and then change. Get on the ladder. Remember, strength, weakness, terms being what they are? Strength to me is being on the ladder, looking to progress. Weakness is rejecting the ladder. It's insulting the ladder, right? When you have somebody who has one of these issues that I'm going through this list about, one of the things that compounds the deficiency or the negative influence of these attributes is that then the only way that they can deal with being exposed to it is to lie even more, is to create even more distance between themselves and the process that's actually going to change and improve whatever is deficient in them. Let's get to the next one. Number 2. My friends are solid. A lot of times people conflate community with company. Because people are around you for a certain amount of time, you consider them to be valuable to you. And the value simply comes in a form of familiarity. They are familiar to you. The value that comes from that familiarity is just the fact that it's the landscape you're used to seeing. It's the ecosystem you're used to engaging. So they're valuable because it allows you to continue to do what you regularly do. Everything is, I can almost trust my ecosystem because these things stay the same. When you have a friend who is solid, there is an alliance that creates a synergy. in TRIBALNOMICS, I talk about the whole point of two identities forming an alliance is that together there is more value than exists separately. This excess created value is synergy. Every single one of your allies you should have a synergistic bond with. The problem that most people have is that they are surrounded by people who are not only familiar, and that familiarity, as I described, is the only reason that they're that close to them to begin with, but they maintain the status of the alliance despite the different trajectories that individuals take. I told you guys a story once about running into one of my childhood friends in my parents' old neighborhood. My father passed away, and my mother lives in a house that they bought about an hour out of New York City. But when they were still living in New York City, I remember going to visit them, and I was walking through my old neighborhood, and I ran into this buddy of mine. And I was asking him, what he was up to, making small talk, hadn't seen him in a while, and he told me he was going to open up a sneaker store. And I knew he was full of shit, because this is somebody who has never portrayed himself to be ambitious, hardworking, or just authentic. So I knew he was bullshitting. And most people he has this conversation with, it didn't sound like it was the first time he had it. Most people probably, play the game with him. They lie about some shit they're going to do too. And it's like, so we're both taking over the world. See you next time. That's how they must part when those conversations happen. But I asked him immediately, like, okay, where are you thinking about opening it? And he had a little bit of an idea, a little half answer for that. Oh, maybe over here. I'm thinking over here. Oh, what kind of model are you going to design and follow? Is it going to be a brick and mortar retail store? Are you looking to maybe warehouse some of the merchandise and then have an online presence? You're looking to do some sort of a hybrid. Are you looking to specialize? Or is it going to be something where you have a bunch of kids working for you, or is it going to be a family thing? Is it going to be a one-man show? Like the financing, do you have branding yet? Like what? I started asking real business questions, and he didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. But at the end of it, it was like, all right, well, it's still early. I let him off the hook. It's still early, so you'll develop all those things, but good luck. He still doesn't have a sneaker store. A lot of people have relationships with their friends where they don't have that level of transparency. So it's not even that their friends aren't solid. It's really, well, how the fuck do you know if they're solid or not? Over the last couple of years, right, with this pandemic, how many people did you think were good to go, and then the pandemic hits and they lost their fucking minds? I know people in the real world who were cheering everyone getting fired because they didn't want to get the shot. Who were sitting there in public insulting and borderline threatening people for engaging in social activities without masks and everything. How many people like that did you have in your life that prior to that, you were like, oh yeah, good guy. And then that happened, and it's like, holy shit, this guy's fucking nuts. I've mentioned before, I know people in my family who were banning other family members from attending their house during holidays because they weren't vaccinated. So now what's the answer to that? Like, if you don't even know if your friends are solid, to be walking around saying they are, well, how do you find out? You do some shit with them. You have talks that go beyond, that transcend the bullshit that people want to fill their time with these days. Who won the game last night? Oh, I'm getting this new car. Or whatever, just trivial nonsense. You got to have real talks if you want to have real bonds with people. Right? Think about like putting an anchor in the ground, right? and I'm thinking of like a tent or something, right? Or a post, something in the ground. And you want it to hold. Well, how do you get it to hold? You have to put it in deep to the ground. It has to be so deeply embedded that any forces that are going to tug on it, that you expect to tug on it, are not going to be as strong as the grip it has on that ground. Well, these deep alliances can only come from experiences that transcend the everyday nonsense. You got to do some stuff. I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of my super close friends, my closest friends, are people that I train violence with on a regular basis. You know, people that, you know, I've been in just physical fucking panic with and going through these rituals with these brothers of mine. Like, it's not a mystery why, you know, we're so close to one another. We can have real talks without people getting offended. You know? So, are your friends solid? I don't know. And the majority of men out there right now, like, I would question their ability to even be able to determine whether their friends are solid or not. Comments. Let me go to the comments here. Super Honky. Hello from St. Louis. Good stuff from C. Hard to believe you do not have 1 million followers. Good luck. I appreciate that. I'm just glad Super Honky's here. I'll worry about the rest of the guys later. Johan Saxa says, I used to help the people who were a lost cause until I realized alignment with those people was never to my benefit. Lies, cheaters, addicts, thieves, they aren't worth putting effort into unless they put more effort into themselves than you are putting into the friendship. You know, and I agree completely. And, you know, when you look at the mechanics of alliance that I describe in the book, it's really, well, we have a finite amount of energy. When we delegate or allocate this energy somewhere, we have to ask ourselves, is there going to be a return on it? And it's not that we don't care about who the potential recipient is, or that we are some sort of, you know, isolationist or selfish person. It's that there's a certain point where it's not sustainable. I am going to lose my ability to be me if I continue to allocate resources in one direction with never a return on its way. It's waste versus investment. The people that are in your lives should be people you invest in, which means you have something that comes back that is more than what you gave. Now, ideally, the goal is to make that synergy. So they're experiencing the same thing. They're getting back more than they put in. That's what a healthy alliance is. But when you have individuals out there that, you know, I'm helping this person, I'm helping that person, this homeless guy, or I'm helping this guy get off the drugs, and well, there's a certain point where you have to admit to yourself, you're just doing this because it makes you feel better. This is catharsis. Because if you can't help more than one, you got to explain to me why the one matters. Why the one matters over the other one. You know, I don't think, you know, talking about lying to themselves, a lot of people, they don't have the reps of being authentic to themselves to the point where they can acknowledge, you know, I'm just doing this because I need something to pick me up. I'm doing this because I like the attention I get. I'm doing this because the status that I get as a result is something that makes me feel successful. Like whatever it is, you just got to admit it to yourself. It's not always a bad thing. You know, being given, you know, attention in a form of honor and even glory from a tribe for you conducting yourself a certain way, you know, that's something. There's a reason why we put heroes on pedestals, because it becomes the model of pure goodness in a moral sense when it comes to a tribe. It's like, this is the perfect version of us. You know, that's what the heroes represent. Well, that comes from people investing their efforts and energies. So a lot of us, again, I started that whole friend piece on, we confuse community, right, tribe, with company, which is just familiarity. This is one of my best friends. Why is he your best friend? Oh, I've known him since we're 10. That's not a fucking reason for somebody to be your best friend. It might correlate to some best friendships, like it certainly has as a piece of the pie, but just knowing somebody for a long time does not create value inherently, right? So we need different metrics to follow if we're actually going to make improvements in these areas of our lives. We can't just go by feel. It's not the way it works. Let me hit this last one. It's going to be somewhat controversial. Money doesn't matter. Oof, that took a turn, right? Oh, I thought we were talking about spirituality and all these, like, oh, now we're talking about money. Well, let me ask you something, men. Are you providers for your family? People love the protector part. A lot of the protectors insult the providers. A lot of the providers insult the protectors, to be fair. But are you somebody, as a man, that has taken on the responsibility, the role of being the provider for your tribe? Right? It was hunters-gatherers, right? Warriors, hunters, gatherers. Well, sometimes, we got to do some gathering. I heard a saying once, and I don't know who said it first. It's attributed to a bunch of people. But making money will fix any problem having money will fix any problem that not having money created. And it's a little clumsy, I think. I think it's really easy to get into the money as the only metric, mindset when we just leave that saying as it is. But I do think that when you have a bunch of issues in your life that will be resolved by you becoming a better provider, we do ourselves a disservice to try and design some other narrative, to explain it away, to rationalize why, why we don't have the funds that we should. I was watching an old TV show, and there was a cop in it who was talking to his wife, and they were having money issues because the kids were in like a Catholic school. And he told her, he's like, don't worry, we'll make it work. I'll find a way to make it work. And he wound up finding like side jobs to do to make more money. And it's like there's a certain point where if there is not a concerted investment in becoming a better earner for your family, what exactly do you think you are, if not one of the guys when there wasn't this modern economy, one of the guys that couldn't hunt for shit, didn't know how to provide for his family? Most of the time, women didn't even try and associate with those guys because they were fucking losers. They didn't represent any security, any stability, right? Any provision, safety. There's a long history of logic, behind what we should be looking to develop ourselves as men, in these modern times. Money matters because we don't live off grid. It's not the only thing that matters. The protector can't insult the provider can't insult the protector, because we're all supposed to be providers and protectors. In this day and age, if you do not know how to earn an income, I'm just saying, again, strength is a ladder. I'm not saying, listen, if you're not making $1 million, you're a piece of shit. What I'm saying is, To ignore the value of money, ignore the value of income, is to ignore your potential, which means you ignore all of the attributes, the opportunities you could provide for the people you care about, if you did actually do the work to develop those aspects of who you are. I'm comfortable with this job. I like my working environment. I work with nice people. I make a decent salary. And, and you have a kid. You have 2 kids. You have 3 kids. All right. Listen, you should enjoy what you do. I agree with that. But if you could do more, would you be able to provide more? Well, I don't think, my kids have everything they need, but it's not what I asked. If you could provide more, would you be able to also provide more opportunities for these children? It doesn't matter if you're good here. It's just understand where you are represents a rung in a ladder, because you could do worse. What if you made less? Oh, then we'd start having these other issues. We wouldn't be able to send them to this school. They'd have to go to a public school. All right, so pretend the public school was the reality right now. I'm just advocating for making more so you can go up to the private school as an example of one improvement across the board by a provider being able to provide more effectively. Men struggle with a lot of mindset issues, as mentioned before. And I think one of the biggest hurdles that, I've observed in helping men, through my coaching program for all the years that I have, when it comes to money, is that a lot of them just don't believe that they deserve it. They're scared of failing. I made a meme earlier, and I didn't post it yet. I'll probably post it later. You guys got the inside scoop. Let me find out what it says. What it says, most people need to be angry in order to be truthful. Most people need to be angry in order to be truthful. There are men out there that the only time that they will go beyond their current level of achievement is if they have some sort of anger. I'll be the first one to tell you, similar to leveraging New Year's resolution energy, if something's pissing you off, use it. I remember reading Think and Grow Rich. I don't know if it was chapter 12 maybe, but it talks about leveraging sexual energy. Kinky bastard Napoleon it was. But what are they talking about? It's talking about energy and all right, you need energy from places. Why are all these like caffeine? Like, listen, we know energy is something that is valuable. But if you have something creating energy in your life, even if it's anger, leverage it into something positive. Some people need to be angry just to be honest with themselves, to be honest with others. Because they don't understand that doing the right thing is just a reward in and of itself. And I don't mean that in a corny, cliche way. I mean that having a lifestyle, an approach to life, a philosophy where we are being truthful to the people that are connected to us, it produces results that everybody would want if given the chance to pick it. Everybody would want the life that'll be provided for you if you start being truthful for yourself. But why do we need to be angry to do these things? All right? It's not a switch that can be flipped, but it starts with a realization. You have the realization, then you see where you are, where that realization, exists, and then you start mapping out, how do I get from here to there? And that process is the ladder. All right? So money doesn't matter? Yeah, money matters. Try not having any and see how it goes. And by matters, it doesn't mean that you should try and get as much as you can either, because I believe there's such a thing as too much money. There's too much money. How do you know you have too much money? Because there are good things that you could do that you aren't doing because of how much money you have or because of the pursuit of the money you have. My income is almost completely lockstep with how much time I want to spend with my family. There are times where I will spend less time with my family and I will invest in creating these foundations, these fires I use as the metaphor for these new income streams or businesses. And there are times where I let things rock because in order to maintain the balance of my life, I need to take the kids to their wrestling class. I need to go and I never go food shopping, but go to the store. I need to go and, we went on vacation a couple of weeks ago. Like, balance is important. So what is too much money? Like when you have so much of it that the pursuit or the accumulation of it takes away from your balance. Right? Rich people kill themselves too. Rich people get divorced too. Rich people, are on depression meds too. Like, just because you got money, it doesn't absolve you of all those problems. So I'm always going to be an advocate for balance over, get as much money as you can. But to sit here on the other side and try and say money doesn't matter, it's like, holy fuck, you are lying to yourself. If I wanted to be a dick, I could say you're just saying that because you don't have any. But how far off am I? You not having money is just a snapshot in time. You could change that whenever you want. I'm not selling you anything right now, but listen, fucking between Google and YouTube, you could become an empire. So let's stop there. Oh man, a bunch of comments here. I appreciate them. I'm not gonna have a chance to read them. Let me just remind you guys right here. If you are not on the email list, please make sure you do that. And obviously, I'm assuming you've subscribed to the channel. You don't have to hit the notification bell. You should not be getting notifications from social media. I'm here every Wednesday at noon. I send you emails in the morning. That's all you need from me. Whatever it is that you're doing, you want to make sure that that's where your time is being spent. Don't allow social media to distract you, myself included. All right, guys. I appreciate you guys. I hope you like the new channel rebrand. I got some other things popping up in the next weeks and months, but I will certainly keep you in the loop for that. All right, so thanks for spending time with me. See you next week. And as always, brothers and a couple of you sisters out there, pressure to power.